All right, so we'll get underway. So today we're looking at effective and timely communication, and also looking at diffusing key moments. So that any conflict strategies that we can come up with, just to take the edge out of some moments, which can go, one of a few different ways sometimes. So we've got a few things that we'll do tonight, but we'll just get started by just a bit of initial discussion. So a couple of key questions that we'll just have an open floor for, so you guys can just pipe in with some responses and some discussion in an open floor. So firstly, why is communication important to us as a referee, or why is it important for us? What tools do we have available to us in terms of communication, and who would you consider key people to communicate with on game day? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck those three questions in the chat here. So what you can do, you can feel free to either say something out loud right now, if you've got some input there, or even if you want to type something in the chat box down the bottom, totally fine as well. But I'm just going to open the floor, and while you guys are having a bit of a chat, I'm just going to arrange some groups for our next activity after this. So go for it. Whoever wants to lead off.
Okay, the principal partners leading in from question three from Cam. Who are the people who you talk to who are going to be conservative to what you're doing? I would think would be the captain, the coach and the vice captain. Yeah, just talking to those people. So if you're doing your pre-talk, you can have a good conversation with them, get them there as an understanding, get the captain to work in with you what you require on the field. Sam.
Oh, thanks, mate. I think that's hit the nail on the head. Front row as well, obviously, because you have that front row chat, and I think probably that front row chat and chat with captains and coach early is a way to establish the relationship that you're going to have throughout the game. So if you are a bit of a dickhead there, then they're going to think of you as that person. So I think it's probably establishing, and I think it establishes your style as well. So I think that's the thing, is that you go and watch people and then they do it a certain way, but it doesn't, in my opinion. You just need to be authentically you, so you can take that onto the field. So you can be friendly, but you still need to have a level of authority, because you're going to need that on the field. So that's my perspective. In terms of the different types of communication, you've got obviously verbal, your signals, your body language, and even the way that you look at people. So a really good example, and whistle as well, like Heavy's just put through, but I think a good example that I saw a couple of weeks ago when I was watching Tiana's game is that I noticed that every single time she gives a penalty, she looks the person in the eye, and she basically gets no one coming back at her, because I think it's quite easy to give a penalty and then be looking at the ground almost like, I don't know, embarrassed that you're giving the penalty, but she just eyeballs them, and I think she gets massive respect for that, which I thought was really cool. I hadn't even noticed anyone do that, and not in a violent way, but yeah, I thought that was really cool. It kind of upped that presence, and that was something that I've never really considered. So that would be a key one for me to maybe think about this weekend for everybody, is that actually eye contact's quite good, and don't shy away from your decisions. Own it with your whole body language, even where your eyes are fixed. Sorry for the ramble.
That's all right, Sam. And the other thing too is sometimes, guys, what I do is I'll call in the first 5-8 when I'm talking to the front rows, because basically they can control your offside lines for you. So you ask them to keep their players on the 10 at the line out, or I say 12 or 11, and at the scrums keep them back 6 or 7 metres. I know it's only 5 and 10, but give them that extra metre, it stops them from coming forward. So that can work for you too. So if they're working with you, it saves you a lot of hassles with your sidelines at lineouts and scrums.
Graham here. 2 additional tools, if you've got them. There's your 2 ARs. So that would apply in club rugby here at Premier level at least. There's ARs on, or appointed ARs on most of those games. So team of 3 or 4 or whatever you want to call it.
That's good chat to get us underway there, guys. So plenty of strategies there, and I like that we did have a range at least of communication tools that we can use. Not just our voice, not the way we speak, but also our whistle, of course, and our body language. And on a particular night, I really particularly enjoyed the hearing about what Tiana does with eye contact. Again, that does help us in actually delivering a message or getting a message across. Okay. All right, what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a little, I haven't prepped anyone for this yet, so I'm just going to throw a couple of people under the bus. If you don't mind, we'll get Tiana, seeing as you're going to be ducking out of this meeting early, you're going to be our referee for this exercise. And Jono, you can be our captain for this exercise. So what this is going to be I'm going to set the scene. It's a front row, or it's a referee to captain conversation. So Tiana, so you're going to be the referee. So basically, there's been a scrum penalty, and there's been a few scrum penalties against Jono's team for collapsing the scrum. Okay. Now, Jono, can you hear me, mate? You in there? I'll just get you off mute first, make sure you're all good.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yep, sweet as. Cool. So, Jono, you are the captain of this team that has been penalised, and Tiana's having a conversation with you. But you're going to be stating your position that you think that it's the opposition tight head who's angling in and is actually the cause of the scrums instead. Okay, so that's your position. Jono, is you're complaining about the opposition and their actions at the scrum. Tiana, you're talking to the captain about you've penalised them for collapsing under pressure, I should say. There's been 3 penalties, and it's only 20 minutes into the game. Okay, so have a little think about what you're going to say. For everyone else, this is your task. Okay, so you're going to listen to what these guys are going to say. And then I'm going to pop you into breakout groups. So think about what you notice in terms of the message that you're delivering, any body language, any of that stuff that we're talking about before. Was the message or the point gotten across, and did they actually understand what the message was that was being delivered across? Okay, so just have a listen in to how it goes. I won't get you guys to speak for very long, but there's no pressure either. We just want to sort of see how this might go. So, all good. You guys ready?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Exactly. So, Tiana, you're the referee. You've called the captain across, and the floor is yours now.
Hey, Jono, could I just have a chat to you, please?
Yeah, Ref. Well, what's happening, Ref? Talk to me.
Well, it's now the 3rd penalty where I've pinned up the tight head for angling into the scrum, and I've had a chat to him a couple of times about squaring up. So if he goes wrong again in this next scrum, I'm going to yellow card him. Can you just have a talk to him about making sure that he's square?
So which player again, Ref?
The tight head. Prop.
My tight head.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
100%.
Oh, okay. Well, he's
So
just
you
saying
just
that he's saying that the other tight head's just putting pressure on him, and you haven't looked at both ways, Ref. It feels like I'm being picked on here a little bit.
I'm going to say this to you nice and clearly now. His body's at an angle, and he's purposely angled in. So this is the 3rd time that he's done that, and I'm looking at him directly. So I'd like for you to sort him out, or else I'll yellow card him.
I hear what you're saying, Ref, but hey, it's 3 penalties. Come on.
Crouch.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. All right. Okay, so now that we've all had a chance to listen to that, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop you into breakout groups very shortly, and I'm going to get you just to have a quick conversation. Before I pop you into breakout groups, you will see in the chat right now, there is a link. So for anyone particularly anyone who's on a computer, they'll be able to access this really easily. So hopefully there's someone on each of your groups who can access this. If you're on a phone, you may not be able to access it so well, so you can just participate in the conversation. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes in breakout groups. The key points on there for what you need to for what you're discussing. Okay. Think about what did you notice in terms of their conversation, the way they were having the conversation, what the referee and were they able to get their message across, and did they understand the message that was actually being put across. Okay, cool. I can see that pretty much everyone's come back in now. So what we'll just do a quick whip around. If you can just think of, we'll just have one person from each group. I know we've got a few notes on the document already, which is awesome. Some people couldn't get into the doc, that's totally fine. Again, it's more just a prompt for discussion than anything else. It's not the be all end all. So what we'll just do, I will just share my screen briefly so that you guys can actually see what I'm looking at in terms of the doc, and you'll see the same thing. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. Sweet. So a couple of notes that came in there from Tiana's group there. So so we talked about what did you notice. So they've talked about there was no waffle. So Tiana may be pointing out her own strategies. But yeah, clear and concise, a different tone, and consistent and direct. And they've also talked about the referee was able to get their point across, and maybe the captain didn't so much. I think Jono, you've been as a captain, you've been accused of not really listening and had another agenda to push, which is what we face in games sometimes. So it's a real situation. Did someone from one of the other 3 groups just want to share a few thoughts about their discussions?
Go on, Sam.
Perhaps even maybe a bit about understanding. Did the referee or captain actually really understand the message, and what kind of signs did we have of whether that was understood or not?
Well, I don't think he did understand. Well, he didn't display by his voice that he understood. And like any good captain, he went to bat for his team. So yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I think he understood. I think he was just looking for a weakness in the referee.
Okay.
Challenging the decision, hoping he should back down.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yep.
And
Very clear and precise.
As a referee, what could we do to actually check for understanding? You know, whether they're trying to drive their own agenda or not, which is often what they do. How could we actually check for that understanding to make sure that our message has gotten across?
Ask a direct question.
Okay. And what like what?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Good question.
Problem is, you may not want to hear the answer. If they say no, what are you going to do then?
So, well, maybe we need to move further quickly then. I don't know. Hard to say.
Were there any other observations that were sort of made from the conversation between those two?
Yeah, we were talking about when she said that she'd issue a yellow card. The guys actually thought maybe instead of saying that, which puts her into a position straight away, she sort of just said, I may need to take this to the next step, next level. It doesn't happen.
So maybe about the language that we use potentially, where you could still offer the same thing, all right?
We had that same discussion, whether you pull your guns out of your pocket straight away or ask for an improvement first. Again, it can be a double-edged sword. So I guess, yeah, each game as it comes to how you use it. But yeah, we had a little chat on that.
Yeah, because once you commit to saying you're going to issue a yellow card, you've got no choice but to issue it.
Fair enough. Cool, guys, I've just shared in the so we're just going to. This was just the precursor to moving on to, I guess, some conflict resolution. So I didn't want to spend a heck of a lot of time on this, but I did need to touch on it first of all. So I've just compiled I guess a list of some strategies for effective communication. So I've just dropped the link into the chat there. So what I'll do, if you're on a phone and you can't access it, totally all fine. What I'll do after this call is I'll just email out all of these links as well, so you can actually get them and see the docs and have these as a resource as well. But I'm not going to read through all of them because you guys are big enough to read for yourselves. But I will just outline some of the things that we can do. So things like creating space, another great strategy. Not just talking about the situation we just had. This is about, I guess, general strategies that we can use. So creating your own space and creating to have that conversation. Listening being a key thing, because we can listen, but are we actually taking the opportunity to try and understand what someone's saying? And this is a coaching tip, but it's really useful as a referee as well. But paraphrasing back, so like, I heard you say this, or so what you're saying is yada yada yada, and that shows that you are listening and actually do kind of care about what they're saying, even if you don't. And always kind of have that last say if you can. So you're the one that ends the conversation. Try and end it with something that's positive and moving forward, or that simple question that got said before. Do you understand? And something that evokes a thought and a response. Okay. And just also thinking about some other places that we can communicate as well, actually times of the game or times of the whole event that we can communicate. So just thinking about before the match and during the match. So before the match, think about how you are actually going to approach the team or the captain or the front rows. Are you just going to stroll up in your own time with your own agenda, or do you play it a bit differently? When do you approach the teams? Is it when they're in the changing rooms? Is it when they're on the field and then warm up? Okay, so just actually think about what they are doing, what they're trying to achieve, and what actually it does fit best for you as a referee to get your message across. Okay, because it is about them as well and reading the environment too. And then lastly, like during play itself, try and pick those opportunities to have conversations. It doesn't always need to be a big stoppage. It doesn't need to be a stop and have a big long chat. Try and pick those little down times, the running to a line out, the setting up a scrum, the injuries, the grabbing a water or whatever it might be. Good little times just to drop a something here and there. So I've shared that link there with you guys. You can have a look in your own time for that one. What I'm going to do now is we're just going to have a quick look at conflict strategies themselves. So this one will work probably a bit better in terms of what you have to do in groups. Okay, but for it, I definitely will need someone probably from each group to be able to see the screen. So let me share my screen so you can actually read it. And then what I can do is if you forget what your scenario is, then you can always come back to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some scenarios that you guys are going to discuss within your groups, and then you're going to feed back to everyone else what you would do about it. Okay. So group one, you guys, that's Grant, Hemi, Peter, and Sam. You guys have got the group one delivering a message successfully when tensions are high. Okay, I won't go through the whole scenario, but what everyone needs to be doing for each of their scenarios is how are you actually going to diffuse the situation that's presented to you, and what messages are you going to give and how are you going to give them. Okay, so think about how you're going to diffuse it, what messages you're giving, how you're going to deliver those messages. Okay, so I will, if you can, that's just further down the document if someone has access. If you don't, then I'll just drop that into the chat for you guys. It's all good. Group two, so that's Graham, Gus, Pete, and Scotty. You guys have got repeat offending. Group three is Shinya, Jono, Riley, and Will. You guys have got sideline issues. And group four, that is, well, it must be Estelle, Reese, Sean, and Steve. You guys have got scrum issues. So what we'll do is, again, if you have access to the doc, feel free to pop some notes in as to what you're doing as you're talking. But again, the main purpose of it is to have the conversation within your groups, try and come up with some ways of diffusing your situation. And if you need to give me any messages, what are you giving and how are you going to give them? All right, we're all back in now. Looks like, yep, cool. So what we'll do, guys, we'll just do a bit of a roundup on that one. Okay, so I will get someone to share from each group this time, if that's all good. So what we're looking to do, maybe someone just to briefly describe your, actually what I'll do, rather than having to describe your entire situation, I'm just going to share the screen so you can actually see what's on there. So group 1, Grant, Hemi, Peter, and Sam. Just someone sharing back from there. How are you going to diffuse your situation, and what messages do you need to give, and who are you going to give them to? So
Sam's
Hemi answered this the best out of everyone, so he can report back on it.
I love the delegation that's going on here, guys. It's absolutely ace. Yeah,
Sweet.
It's a lesson in delegation.
Sweet. So pretty much what I said was just stop the game completely because time's already up on the clock. Pull both captains aside for the handbagging and stuff in the lineouts. After that's all been taken care of, I'll have a talk to Team B, who keeps getting penalised for collapsing them all. Explain to him if it does happen here a third time, he runs the risk of a penalty try happening and his team losing that way. So pretty much what I've just said is explain it clearly and explain that huge risk that he runs if he doesn't talk to his team and clean it up.
Cool. Anyone got anything to add or question on that one at all? I've got a challenge, just around the. Yeah. I think you framed it up really nicely, Hemi. Just around when you're telling them about not to collapse them all. Is that the message you want to send, or is there something you can say that would help them understand what exactly they need to do? I'm trying to frame that question up without actually giving away the like what's in my head. Or anyone from that group, or anyone can actually answer that. So that's not just a Hemi question.
Leave that to Sam, more experienced referee.
That's the upward delegation, is it? The
upward delegation.
The older fella.
It's a clinic in delegation.
The old Uno reversal, is it?
Well done.
Yeah, I think using positive talk rather than negative talk. So at this more, make sure that you keep it up and that you know, if you've seen before that they've taken the leg or something like that, you know, you make sure that you stay off the leg and you something like that. Yeah, so giving them the specific behaviour that you want as opposed to just don't collapse it.
Yeah, it's that sort of old analogy of don't push the red button. What do you want to? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so just keep them all up, keep off their legs, blah blah blah. Yep. Although keep off their legs is a negative. But.
Hemi, awesome. Thank you so much for that group 1. Well done, and Sam for the upward delegation add-in. Yeah. Group will go to group 4 actually, just to mix it up a little bit. I know I'm living on the edge here. Scrum issues, group 4. So Estelle, Reese, Sean, and Steve. Who's going to share back from you guys? So what are we doing?
I think that was me.
Oh yeah, so it is.
Scrum issues. We kind of like talked around like creating space, like pulling the front rows away and sort of discussing what the issues are. Having a talk around, they practice this all week, asking them like what the problem is, and then sort of going back and slowing the process up to the point where it's like painfully slow, where they won't want to continue doing that. Like they'll want the process to be a lot quicker. Big front rowers don't like crouching for very long periods of time. So we just figured that if you sort of created that time, that they wouldn't like it, so they would sort their shit out a lot quicker.
Okay.
And that might help. But we also did talk to, like, obviously if it's a safety issue, At certain levels, you could go to uncontested scrums, but that was a last resort. I mean, I personally wouldn't in a development game, but yeah, there's always an option there.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or challenges for Estelle or Group 4 there at all? Or anything to add from the rest of Group 4?
Sam, what are you reading?
Oh, kiwi fruit, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll jump in now. I think one of the ones that I quite like to do when you get the old, they're pushing early and they're pulling back, is that I kind of put it onto them. The same with angles. So I say, well, actually, I'll watch to make sure that they're not pulling back, but you have to make sure firstly that you're not pushing early or the opposite way around, depending who you're talking on. And then kind of have that chat with each of them, and then they know, oh shit, I need to do this, and then he'll start looking at them. So I kind of put it on them that actually I need to be 100% certain that you're doing X before I start looking at them doing Y. I think is one of the ones that I quite doing. Like the bind one's always a good one. They're like, oh, they're pulling down. I'm like, well, if you've got your bind solid and strong, then I'll start looking at them. But at the moment, I'm not 100% happy with your bind.
Yeah, I'll back Sam up there on that one. Just it just sort of adds another layer to what Estelle was saying as well. Is that you could put it back on them. Put back a required action on them, but actually be really clear. This is what I need to see. And then if they it's not your problem as a referee. That the scrum is not your issue. Like, it's not you to fix it, it's the players. So if you make sure that you are putting it on them to get it fixed, then I've always found that the second that you try and fix everything within a scrum, because there's about 50,000 things that can go wrong in a scrum, and they always do, but yeah, pick something out, be really clear on it. That's a good message to send. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I guess a lot that we also talked about too was actually understanding the level of the players too, because a lot of the times when you get particularly development games, is that they don't always have experienced front rows. So having that initial chat right back at the start of the game is really important as well, and just getting a vibe or an understanding of actually how experienced some of these players are, because a lot of the times, particularly if teams are short, they're pulling in guys off who haven't played for the last 4 or 5 years and having to learn something completely new in a very short space of time. So having that sort of understanding pre-game is also very good as well. And if there is something that you need to look at and need to help them with, or slow it down, bring the gap forward, make the gap a bit longer, these are different strategies you can find throughout the game that you could possibly use as well. So we did talk about the non-contested scrums, but I mean that as a complete last resort, because obviously in Premier and development games, that's a key strike force for some teams. But you also got to consider the skill level of some of these players, and in the end of the day, we are referees, and player safety does come first. So, I mean, there's lots of scenarios you can look at with any sort of scrum, but as long as you're comfortable in what you're seeing and you can communicate clearly across all the players, and then you're just hoping the players can fix it themselves.
Bang on. Cheers, Reece. Thank you, Group 4. Thanks so much. I'm going to bounce on back now to Group number 2. So we've got repeat offending. So we've got Graham, Gus, Pete, and Scott. Someone out of your group would like to share a bit about how you're going to diffuse this situation, and what's the message you're going to send? Who are you going to give it to?
Go, Pete.
Rightio, looks like I'm at. Got two points we will look at here. So we're assuming the 2 high tackles in the first half didn't warrant any cards. They were slip ups and just
correct.
Yeah. So we go to the and there was a little chat there with the referee. We presume it was, hey guys, let's keep your tackles down. They're slipping up a little bit. So as we go to the second half, the way I look at it is you don't want to go blow to blow. So obviously there's 14, the captain's come running in, he's on the mark, he's having a crack, he's not happy. At this point, I'd be giving myself time and space. I'd be double blasting the whistle because he's in a position where he's probably going to fire up at the opposition because he's standing on the mark for a start, and bring him off that mark to you, and to keep those and tell the teams to stay away, and you have that little chat. Again, like Sam says, it's got to be positive. So you want to diffuse how he's rushing at you and talking to you. I would have started, look, I appreciate the intensity of the game. We've gone half an hour with no high tackles from the opposition here. It was only a slip up. PK, you've already won the penalty. And just, yeah, like I say, keeping it positive. So look, you've won the penalty, you've got it here. And again, I think you also have to address how he's shouting at you and come at you.
Yeah.
So I'd be ending the conversation with, again, along the lines of, you've won the penalty. If you carry on like this, it's going to be reversed. You need to get back 10. And that's when I'd back off to the mark. And with open palms, you know, not like this, open palms, hands down, ask him to go back 10 metres. And hopefully that diffuses it, because you just don't want to go blow to blow, because if you're standing with him with a conversation, you could be arguing the point forever, especially if it's not a yellow card offence or a red card offence. Obviously, if it was, then you go into your cards anyway. But this looks like it was just another slip up and nothing too reckless.
Any questions, challenges, additional info from Group 2?
Yeah, Graham, I think Pete covered it there. The key point there was 2 high tackles late in the second half, and then, you know, there's this next one, probably the third and only one since then. It's 10 minutes from the end of the game. So plenty of the game, the behaviour or the tackle technique of that Team B showed an improvement. Unfortunately, there was a slip up near the end of the game. But from the action taken by the referee, it wasn't a repeat infringement as such. It was just something that happened, and didn't warrant cards. So right call, but wrong reaction from the Team A captain.
100%. I think this one is it can almost be a distraction. The fact that you got the high tackles, it's almost a distraction from actually what the real issue here, and the real issue is the captain and the reaction from it. And so if you think about how you can set that up pre-game, when you have a chat to the captains, you know, you can think, right, when you're actually having a chat to the captains, the one thing I always say to them is, let's pick the right times to have it. If you got something to say, let's pick the moments to have that chat. Line out, scrums, time off, all good. Not at a penalty. And that's where you can be really firm with them and say, look,
that was in the chat too. Just remind him, look, I told you there's a time and place, and it wasn't a penalty. There's also a good time to diffuse it.
Always go back to your pre-match stuff, and if you set it up and you've made that agreement in pre-match when everyone's got cool, calm heads, you can always pick it out, and when the blood's rushing. So it's always good. Cool. Good stuff, guys. And all right, Group 3 to finish us off. Sideline issues. So again, these are scenarios that were already written before the season started. However, almost all of these scenarios I've seen them at some point in some way, shape, or form this year. So it's been quite nice to see. So all right, Group 3, sideline issues. Take it away.
I'll just open up and see what the guys are thinking further. This is under 12. This happens from Prem development all the way down. We're reliant on TJs that in fact aren't necessary ARs.
Exactly.
And so that's the first thing to be aware of. The second thing, which is really essential, is that, you know, usually in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game, you want to get a bit of a feel for the competency of the people that are holding the flags for you, because they're part of your team. And if they've good basic skills in there, then, you know, you've got to be confident that they are part of your team. In this situation, we assumed that as a referee, you didn't see whether in fact that player was in or out, that you're reliant on the TJ. awarded the try, there's only one thing that overrules the try, and that in fact is the player was out. And you've had somebody flag that. We talked about then going back to discuss the situation with your TJ and just getting clarity about what they saw. And on the basis that they gave you the judgment that in fact that player was out, then you'd back that judgment. They are your team, and you've had to have called that earlier on in the piece to make sure that the team is your team. And then subsequent actions like that were occurring, then what are you going to do? If your TJ is getting there and getting shit from the sideline, what are you going to do? You're not going to hang him out to dry. You're going to back him or hurt. And any other action is just totally intolerable. I mean, you're creating your own team in that situation in a game reserve and lower, because you have to. We don't have the luxury of ARs that are actually qualified people. So, you know, on the basis that you're confident that the person carrying your flag for you is able to do the job, the basics for you, then why would you behave any differently than if they were actually an official AR? So that's sort of where we got to. And if somebody was getting, your team was getting shit on the sideline, you deal with the sideline.
Any additions there from Group 3, or any challenges or questions that anyone else has got?
My challenge there would be is, who's your go-to person if you've got the sideline getting out of control? Who are you looking for? Are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to find somebody else to go sort it out?
You mean if the spectators are giving, in fact, verbal abuse to your TJ? Yeah, I'd deal with it myself. You're the only one there that in fact, on that field, actually has the qualification to do that.
Yeah, Pete, you don't have many people on the sideline who can support you. There's no officials on the sideline. I can tell you that now. So it's up to the ref to do it.
Can I just say, it's obviously delicate, because you need to be careful that, because from what the word's written, that she doesn't carry on back at the spectators, otherwise you've got a bun fight, haven't you?
Well, that's to separate them. You would call the TJ closer to you.
Yeah, and say,
between them, and push them back.
Yeah, definitely agree with what Will has said there, in terms of it has to be dealt with. Like you can't look past what has happened, and certainly you wouldn't hang them out to dry. You got to, you know, if you've got that confidence in them, you have to trust their decision. I can see where Pete has also led that question as well, and that's we can definitely deal with it ourselves. We also do have some allies that we can also use, which can be quite effective in doing that. So with parents and supporters, our sideline people, I think we can use our might even be able to, if it's obviously not an under 12 game, you wouldn't use a captain, but certainly maybe the coach or the manager of the home team, who are responsible for the behaviour of the crowd as well, involving them, particularly if you're getting some lip back at them, back at you as well. There's an opportunity there as well, just to be like, hey, go to the manager. It might be, rather than engaging in a back and forth discussion, if they're going to have a crack at you too, bring them in and say, hey, look, you know, we're not going to be able to carry on if we've got this carry on, so I'm going to put it on you as the host, as the home ground event manager, or whatever it might be, just to sort the situation out. Then we can carry on with the game and play rugby. So it's definitely, we can take that first step ourselves and back our TJ. This is a real situation. This exact situation, almost, as just in a slightly different way, has happened this year, and it was very well handled by the referee in question. And again, popping a short report about it afterwards as well. That's the other end of it too. You know, if we manage to deal with it in the moment, that's all good. Pop a quick match report in afterwards. Say, hey, had a bit of stuff happen. If we see a pattern back at the union as to what's happening, we can take some even more serious action as well, to make sure that, you know, this isn't happening week in, week out for the next guy or next girl who's refereeing. You know, so there's opportunities to actually support ourselves and each other as well. So lots of different avenues we can take on that one, but it is a very real situation, and like Will said, it can happen all the way from under 11s up to premier development, and anywhere in between. So some good advice there, guys. All right, Okay, guys. Does anyone else have anything to add just around those scenarios at all? Any last comments?
I think Scott wants to say something, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I refed over at the Mount on the weekend, I spoke to the because with contract tracing, I got the host team, which was Mount, and I just said to the coach, I said, "Hey, look, if any of this verbal stuff's going to happen, just make sure you guys are aware. I've spoken to you guys, and you guys need to exactly look after your guys." What you were saying, Cam? How it goes back onto the host.
So you're responsible. Yeah, the host is responsible for their crowd behaviour. Yep.
Yeah, and I just said to them, look, I'm putting it back onto you guys now to keep the crowd appreciating the game.
Nice.
And they did that, which was pretty good.
And it might be if you've gone out of your way to talk to them before the game, it might also be nice in that situation where they've actually done that to actually go back afterwards and say, look, hey, thanks for that. Really appreciate your support. And then that's also a good one too. Spot the opportunities for say nice things. All good. Hey, look, thanks guys so much. What I will do again, I did do a little document of some strategies for conflict resolution. Again, I trust that you guys are all able to read on your own. What I'll do is I've got an email which I'll send out with the links for these documents. I've popped the link for the conflict resolution strategies in the chat just there as well, in case anyone wanted to load it up at the moment and have a read after this call. But again, I won't take your time now just going through those because you can do that in your own time. One thing I do want to, there is one though that I'm a particular big fan of, and it's about depersonalizing the message. And so if you are delivering a message, the power of language is massive. So rather than saying you need to do this and you need to do this, the second you're using that word you, it becomes quite a confrontational. It becomes a me versus you type situation. So even though it is them that needs to do it, just be mindful about how you can actually rephrase it. So rather than saying, I need you to be stable at the scrum, or I need you to be higher on the side of the scrum, you can just use words like, tell them what you need. Say, I need to see stability. Depersonalize it and say, this is what I need, or I need to see more height on this side of the scrum. Let's work on that together. Okay, all of a sudden, just changing the language, it's still exactly the same message. You're still delivering, trying to get the same result, but all of a sudden you've taken it away from being, I'm accusing you of just doing absolutely everything here and you need to fix it up, to here's what I need to see. We all know you're the one responsible for it anyway, but we're all working on this together. So that's your opportunity. Okay, so again, I'll leave that one with you. That's a personal favorite out of that list that I've just sent through as well. Have a good read. Do take some things out of that to maybe try in your game this weekend as well if you've got one. Just remember that these situations they're never gonna come up in exactly the same scenarios that we put in here, but there's always lots of different strategies that we can use. The key thing is just, if always just take a breath, just take a moment, try and stay calm, try and stay cool, and then call on these strategies just to clear your mind. It's always the best start. So